My name is Henry Whitehorn, and I'm a candidate for Caddo Parish Sheriff. I'm a retired United States Marshal for the Western District of Louisiana. I'm a former Chief of Police, former Superintendent of State Police, and former Deputy Secretary for Public Safety Services. I'm an Air Force veteran and also a former patrol officer with St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department. FBI National Academy graduate, National Executive Institute graduate. All of the positions that I have held in my law enforcement career, the leadership roles that I've held, has prepared me to be the next sheriff of Caddo Parish. I've had an opportunity to lead organizations on the state, the local, and federal levels. I'm the only candidate that has the experience in national incident management, dealing with homeland security and emergency preparedness and crisis management. I'm the only candidate that has dealt with billion-dollar budgets on the capital and operating spectrum. I'm the only candidate that has experience managing in a crisis. I was the superintendent of state police and deputy secretary in 2005 when Katrina and Rita hit our Gulf Coast. I was the CAO during the pandemic and the ice storm here in Shreveport. I have the experience necessary to lead. I know policing, I know this parish, and that is my calling, is to serve and protect. And I've done it for over 40 years. I don't believe that there's any other candidate with that experience. I've managed over 3,000 employees at a time. During my time as Deputy Secretary, not only was I the Superintendent of State Police, but I had oversight of the State Fire Marshal, the Game Control Board, LP Gas Commission, Highway Safety Commission, the Management and Finance Office of State Police, the State Police Crime Lab. All of that came under my supervision. And so I know that the experience has prepared me to run the Sheriff's Department. I believe our single most issue facing public safety in Caddo Parish right now is our gun violence and opioid crisis. What I have planned to do is work with partner with our local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies to address this issue. We know that we can't arrest our way out of it, but certainly there are things that we can put in place right now as a focused deterrent. And by working together with the different law enforcement agencies in this community to form somewhat of a team effort to get out and attack this issue now, and then we can work toward the actual solving the problem rather than just work on the symptoms. But right now, we could put together a force of about 35 officers throughout Caddo Parish to address this gun violence. We could be seen on the streets. It's time to quit talking about what we don't have and start using what we do have and putting forces out that can address these issues. Oftentimes, we used to talk about cops on the dots. We know where the crime is. Crime happens in blocks. It happens in certain neighborhoods. It happens in certain complexes. We know where it's happening. So we got to be strategic and allocating our resources to those areas and making sure that the public is engaged with us. We don't want to go out and over-police, but we have to take care of our public safety crisis that's occurring right now. And that's making sure that The gun violence is under control, getting these illegal guns off the streets, and working with our community. The community engagement piece is going to be critical. When I was chief of police, we reduced crime, homicides by 54%. We reduced aggravated assaults by 17%. We had the lowest crime rate in over 30 years in the city of Shreveport. I know how to do it. I can get the job done. I've done it before. And I have those relationships already built. You don't have to train me to do police work. That is what I've been called to do, and I know this parish. I used to patrol all of Caddo Parish when I was a state trooper. And so from Arkansas to the DeSoto Parish line, from Texas to the Bossier City line, that was my responsibility. And so I know this parish, I know the people in this parish, and I know how to get the job done. Mental health is an issue across the board. When you think about mental health, particularly as it relates to the sheriff's department and corrections, we are housing probably 90%. I don't want to go that high. Maybe 60% of the mental problems in this parish, in our correctional institutions, and so. As we respond, many of the calls that officers respond to are mental type of cases where we should have additional resources available to our officers. A lot of times those mental health issues are the cause of the crime. People are not able to think through situations before they act. And so the police are called oftentimes when a person is going through a mental crisis, when really it should be a mental health professional responding. We have to do a better job training our officers to recognize the mental health issues. We partnered with LSU when I was CAO, working with LSU Mental Health to try to put a plan in place with the Shreveport Police Department so that we could have mental health professionals responding with our police officers in many of these cases. And so I think that we're going to have to invest in our mental health services and use some of the taxpayer dollars to make sure that we're meeting those needs rather than just trying to lock people up, because that's not helping that individual, it's not helping those families. And so we have to do a better job with our mental health response. The results have shown that the recidivism has decreased based on the justice reinvestment. What we have to do here is make sure that we're preparing those inmates for reentry into our community. We're not doing a very good job of that at the moment. The work release program has been shut down. Our reentry program is not running at capacity. We need to make sure that we're providing for those inmates and the community when those inmates return back, so that they are not having to go back into the same environment, the same situation that got them incarcerated in the first place. The work release program should be restarted. It allows the inmates and the families to at least have some money when they are released, that they can at least not have to result automatically to a crime in order to take care of the families. We need to be providing education, we need to be providing training, we need to be providing opportunities for those inmates while they're in custody, so that when they do return to our community, that they are somewhat better prepared. If they have a mental issue, we need to be working toward making sure that those mental needs are addressed and that they're receiving the proper treatment while they're incarcerated. And if we need to refer them on their exit to some mental health professionals, make sure that those are available to them. The one thing that we do know is that once an inmate comes into our custody, they lose all of those medical benefits. And so the citizens have to pay for that. We have to make sure that upon their release that they're provided with the necessary tools to be productive citizens once they get out. And the Justice Reinvestment Act confuses a lot of people because they think, well, they've reduced the sentence and people are getting out a lot sooner. Those are for first-time offenders on those reductions. For first-time felony, it was reduced by 10%. They're still going to do the majority of their time. Misdemeanors were reduced by 5%. So if you had it was at 40 before, and so it's only down to 35 now. So we have to make sure that folks understand that those were minimal reductions in sentences. The sheriff is the chief law enforcement officer for the parish. And so, yes, the sheriff does have a responsibility in helping solve some of our youth crimes throughout the parish, not just in the rural areas, but throughout the city as well. There's so many things that we can do, working with our non-government organizations, working with youth services, providing resources to help provide positive opportunities for our youth before they get into trouble. Many times once they get into trouble and we incarcerate them, that's lasting damage on our youth. That trauma for being incarcerated is a tremendous burden on our youth. And so we have to work toward providing opportunities prior to that. We have to be able to work with the schools. I was looking at our neighboring parish in the school resource officer program. They have 45 school resource officers. Caddo Parish has about 7 or 8 resource officers. We can do a better job, but we got to be able to work with our partners, with the schools, to make sure that things are in place for our youth that are positive. I want to provide opportunities for our youth programs, such as summer job programs, the Explore program that allows the youth to work within the sheriff's department during the summer and try to learn a little bit more about law enforcement, so it takes that negative perception away from our young people about what law enforcement is all about. There's so many other programs out there with our non-government agencies that we just need to capitalize on and ensure that we're not running around here talking about our youth don't have anything to do. There's plenty to do, but we got to organize it, and we got to make sure that we're putting it where it needs to be in the neighborhoods, and that our citizens are aware of these programs, and we can get our kids involved. We're going to have to do more with this, with the minimum wage. A lot of kids are saying that's not enough for them to really want to work. And so we got to make sure that we're providing incentives and opportunities for our kids, not to just be out on the street involved with crime. Truancy, another big issue. We got to work with the parents and make sure that they understand the importance of their children's education, and so that they can work with us, because it really all starts at home. And we have to have the parents involved with our youth. We've got some serious issues at our correctional center currently. We have roughly 400 state inmates. We've got another 60 to 70 federal inmates. The CCC was designed for about 1,030 inmates. DOC, I was talking with folks at the Department of Corrections. There are more DOC inmates in local custody than in DOC itself. And so they have room for those inmates. The state pays $36 and a few cents per day for inmates. The feds pay $75 in Caddo Parish for an inmate, where the commission only pays $3.50 plus the medical. And so there's an incentive to house those state and federal inmates. We could make a decision today to remove DOC inmates from Caddo Parish. That frees up 40 beds, right? 400 beds almost by itself. We could make a decision that we're not going to accept any more federal inmates. Bossier Parish has the capacity to increase on the federal inmates. When I was a United States Marshal, the sheriff, I had a meeting with Sheriff Prater, and one of the things that he wanted to make sure that we did was increase the federal inmates at CCC. This overcrowding started in 2005 when Katrina and Rita hit the Gulf Coast, and we had to move inmates from South Louisiana north. And so it has been an opportunity for local sheriff's departments to make money. And so we're going to have to make a decision that our deputies' well-being, their safety, and just for the sake of safety, get some of those inmates out of our custody. And we can call DOC today and they would take those inmates away from us. Free up that space, and we got a work release center that's 100-bed space that's not even being used. We got a mental health ward with 12 beds that's not being used. So we have space. We just need to figure out what we're going to do about the overcrowding piece of it. We all have to work together to solve this issue. One of the things that I would make sure of is that our deputies are properly trained in case management, report writing, ensuring that when we do present a case to the DA's office, it's a case that can be prosecuted thoroughly and fully. We have to make sure that we're communicating the needs of the sheriff's department with the courts to ensure that they understand how we need to process those unadjudicated offenders to get them out of our system. I was speaking to a judge recently, and the judge shared with me that Caddo Parish prosecutes more cases than any other parish in the state. But we're not recognized for that. We only have so many judges. We only have so many assistant DAs, so we can only process so many cases. So we got to figure out, is there a way we can start doing night court? Is there a way that we can start doing weekend courts? A way to move those cases through our system and get those folks where they need to be, either back on the street or in jail at a DOC facility. I believe that millage that's on for this fall election deals with juvenile. And so, yes, I do support that increased millage. we have to make sure that we've gotten things in place to help with our youth services. Our juvenile court system are operating on millages from many, many years ago. And so they don't have the resources necessary to adequately support their operation. The sheriff's office is sitting on about $50 million in surplus at the end of this fiscal year. And the sheriff's office has not really invested in youth juvenile services. And so we need to all work together and ensure that funds are available to help not only prosecute, but provide services for our youth that will keep them out of trouble. And I believe that this money will be well spent, and the Caddo Parish citizens will reap the benefit of this increase. Initially, I was against the centralized sales tax. And I was against it because I was serving on the Sales and Use Tax Commission here in Caddo Parish. And I knew that we were doing a real good job of collecting those taxes and making sure that they were dispersed the way they were supposed to be dispersed. If this universal system throughout the state will work, I don't have a problem with it. The concern that I have is we're still having to pay a fee. We're going to have to pay the state a fee now to collect those taxes. Is that money that could be kept here in the parish by using our current system of collecting taxes? I believe that what we're doing is good, but I'm also in support of anything that would make our tax collection better. No, I want to thank you for this opportunity to talk about public safety in Caddo Parish. I think it's critical. Public safety should be the most important issue for any parish. And so we need someone that is capable and already prepared to take this next step. I am the individual that has the training, the experience, and I'm prepared to start today as your next sheriff in Caddo Parish. When I think about some of the issues we face, these are life and death issues dealing with crime. Police does not have the opportunity for do-overs. In other words, we need someone that knows what they're doing to be able to step up into this position. I am that person, and I'm looking forward to the opportunity to serve the citizens in Caddo Parish and make this place, our community, safe for all of our citizens, not just in the rural areas, but within the city of Shreveport. The city of Shreveport is the largest part of Caddo Parish as far as population goes. And so we need to make sure that we're serving all of our citizens and not just part of our citizens. And I'm prepared to do that. I've done it before. You've seen my record, and I know that I'm the most qualified person in this particular race to serve the citizens of Caddo Parish.